I will give you an intro. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Marcin here from Wireless Income Academy. Greetings from sunny, beautiful, gorgeous Maldives, and I want to welcome you to another exciting episode of Wireless Income Interviews, where we meet incredible people who have the courage to step into the passions and choose to live amazing life by design. I'm really excited today to introduce you to somebody really special, somebody who comes from US, who is legally blind, but he's a man of a great vision and has accomplished incredible things. He's father of three, he's a lawyer, he worked for US president, he is six-figure earner, man with incredible heart, driven by contribution to improve the quality of lives of many. We often meet people who have sight but don't have vision. But meet today Ollie Cantos, who doesn't have sight but have massive vision. Hello, Ollie. How are you?
Hi, doing well. It's really good to be here today.
I'm really excited that we managed to take it off the ground. It has been a journey to get to that point, but I have to say I'm really impressed how you set up the whole Google Hangout. Many of my friends with all the sites, they cannot go that far. So it's amazing how you handle technology.
Well, technology is the great equalizer for many of us, especially when the technology works.
And it does. This time it works, so we're really, really happy. I'm so excited about that. And what I want to say that, getting to that interview, I mean, that's a really cool stuff. I'm like 14,000 kilometers or maybe even more away from you. I'm in Maldives, you're in Washington. Just before we started. Here in Maldives, we had the power cut, and everything just stopped. There was no internet, no light. People didn't know what to do. But life hasn't stopped for you. How come? Like, how are you able to move forward?
Well, ultimately, in any moment, the way we move forward is to make the best of our circumstances. We have to always find new opportunities, both in adversity as well as in moments of triumph, because either way we can take our lives to a brand new level as long as our mindset is right. And
how do you get to that place?
Well, there are a number of ways to do it. A lot of the misconceptions that exist in the world surround feelings of, well, I will be happy when I am successful. Or I will be happy when I acquire this, whatever it is. It's always something in the future, meaning that for those individuals, they think that they're not going to be able to either be happy now or be as fulfilled now until they reach some magical future point when that changes. But actually, it's backwards, where we may decide immediately that we have so much to be grateful for, and all we have to do is count our many blessings in our lives. And then that is where the source of true happiness comes, when we are truly grateful for our many, 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 many countless blessings. And then when we are in a place of happiness, then all of the success that we dream of in life, all of the things that we aspire to acquire, spiritually, materially, financially, anything, they come to us faster, because when we're in a state of happiness, we're in a better position to see opportunities that we may not have otherwise noticed. And we're also in a position to take massive action, because within our own minds, we're coming from a place where we're truly, truly appreciative for all that we have. And then that's why when we look at the most successful people in the world, the success that we see in them is due in significant part to the mindsets that they have that draws them to the places where they are. And ultimately, no matter where we are, we are where we are because of our mindset. The things that we have in our lives now are the products of the mindset that we had previously, and our current lives are a manifestation of how we have been thinking all this time.
I heard that you are where you are because of your best thinking, and I remember for the first time hearing that, it like really hit me very strongly, because it pushed me to a point where I needed to take ownership and I needed to take responsibility over the current situation where I was, and that was such a shift for me. And I want to speak about that mindset, and I will ask you directly. There are people who who have sight, who are perfectly healthy, and they struggle to find something to be grateful for. And people who are watching this, they will ask a question: how can you be grateful, and what are you grateful for right now, and how did you get to the point to learn that? There are 3 questions I threw here, but I would like to get the answers for that, because that would be beautiful move forward.
Well, the way that we arrive at the place of gratitude and the way that we can count our blessings is to literally start with the smallest things, whatever they may be. The roof we have over our head, access to running water, the food on the table, our ability to feed our children, our love from our parents, the places we get to go for fun, the walks we get to take, the nature outside, literally the steps that we take, the things that we hear or see, or however way we acquire information through the world through our senses. Literally, it just starts by looking at the smallest of small things, the literal breath that we take.
And how did you learn that? Where does it come from? Because it's not natural. Obviously, lots of people would focus what they don't have, what they cannot control. And you made a choice not to focus what you don't have and what you cannot control, but you consciously chose things that are around there and you can appreciate. How did you learn that?
Well, for me, a big part of that stems from what I learned from my parents. And it also stems from mentors along the way through school. I had various teachers along the way who taught me to appreciate the many blessings in life. And then as I grew older, when I became an adult, I really took things to a brand new level when I first started reading Tony Robbins when I was in my 20s. And then I learned how to apply visualization to everything that I wanted. And the interesting thing is that I just did a little bit every day. I just dedicated time to personal development, an hour a day, and often more, way more than an hour a day. It's just ultimately the fruits of how productive we are in this depends on what we put into it. If we dedicate more time each day toward our development, that's really the key. And that includes reading personal development books and watching uplifting videos and reading inspiring stories or listening to them or attending different meetings or different functions where we can be inspired and just taking the time to develop ourselves, regardless of whatever our backgrounds may be, because of our access to technology. We can go on the internet and we could read inspiring stories just by Googling different search terms. We can watch things on YouTube by just typing in whatever it is that we want to learn about. And then we take notes on those things. And then as we take action, then we stop to appreciate all those small victories, and we just keep building and building and building. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of consistency. When we look at the most successful people in life, however way we define that success, the common factor is that they spent time on their development with what they are successful at. If we all do that and we spend the time developing ourselves, then the rest basically falls into place. So frequently people say, oh, well, that's easy for you to have been successful because that came easy. Well, they don't necessarily see the times when there were setbacks. They don't see all the hard work that took before we got to that point. I mean, in my case, people could never have imagined that I'd be bringing in a 6-figure income. I mean, I never knew and thought originally that I would be getting it so quickly, but it was something that I focused on, and it happened relatively quickly. And I mean, it was funny. I was doing the math the other day, and I'm relatively young. I'm not as young as other successful folks, but I'm 44 years old. But over my lifetime, I think roughly, don't quote me exactly on this, but I've made over my lifetime roughly more than 2 million, roughly between $2 and $3 million.
Nice.
You know, I mean, it's not like it's it's not really, it's neither here nor there. And I'm not trying to say that anybody will make any specific amount of money, but for me personally, my big goal for making the kind of money that I'm making is because I wanted to be able to provide for myself and my family, and I wanted to have different options. And so because of all of this visualization that we talked about, this was one of the goals that I had. I have a lot of other goals that have nothing to do with money, but visualization, Marcin, is really the key to getting anything we want. There's no limit. And the thing that I know is that there's no quota as far as how successful we can be. It's not like, all right, you have now made this amount of money and that is all you possibly can ever make because now you've hit something. Or you've now, there's no limit on the dreams that we can have. And there's nothing wrong with, and in my view at least, there's nothing wrong with our striving for our greatest potential in every way, spiritually, financially, socially, as well as our potential to be of service to the world. We should always have a balanced life, and we shouldn't just be driven by one specific element of our lives, but rather just really as part of being well-rounded. We need to have a spirit of service, and we also need to have a spirit of excellence within our own lives. And then when we combine those two things, then making a big difference in the world and making the kind of income we want need not to be mutually exclusive. It just doesn't have to be. And it's a big myth if people think that it does.
I love that, and it came out in our previous conversation when you were showing me around the streets of Washington. We are driving through, you're on a bus with your 3 sons, and you showed me the streets, you showed me Pentagon, and it was amazing to be led and guided by a blind person who is legally blind with such an amazing vision. But I just want to touch on that because I like the fact that you are not apologetic about that. That you are crystal clear that you want to grow. You want to grow spiritually, you want to grow financially, you want to grow in a contribution level. And you clearly come across as a person who is very strongly driven by contribution. I love that. And this is the reason, one of the reasons I wanted to have the interview with you, because I love seeing people who are so strongly contribution driven. And I wanted to come back because there are so many pieces here that I'm very interested to hear a little bit more about that. I would like to go, here during the interviews that we do, we like to bullet point certain processes in order to make it actionable for people who are watching that and to be able to take advantage of that and implement right away. What's your process for visualization? Because you've set many goals, and I will ask you some more questions about that. But what's your process? What do you do with your head? What's your process for getting that first in your head and later executing that?
Oh, well, literally, it takes an effort to be in a quiet place. I mean, I literally lay it out for you. If you want the literal nitty gritty, how exactly process-wise do you do it? What I do is I make sure to place myself in a quiet place. And I don't have anything on. I don't, no radio, no TV, no anything, no distraction. And then I close my eyes, and I'm fully awake, but I close my eyes and I start by breathing deeply. I breathe deeply as far in as I can go. And I count how many seconds or intervals that takes. Then I hold it. I hold my breath for a multiple of 4 of however long it took for me to breathe in. And then I breathe out by a multiple of 2. So it's a 1-4-2. It's a 1-4-2 ratio. And then each time I breathe in, I literally imagine that I'm breathing in all the positivity in the world, all of the wonderful energy that's all around me, that's all around us. And then when I hold it, when I'm holding my breath in between there, then I'm imagining that all of the positivity I just breathed in is it's literally penetrating every cell in my body. And then after that, I breathe out with a factor of 2. And when I breathe out, then anything, any waste, any negative thoughts, anything just goes, it's literally breathed out of me. And I do that 10 times. And then while keeping my eyes closed, I picture, well, there's this exercise. I should actually step back. This is just this is in the morning. There's a different exercise in the evening, which if you want, I can get to later. But just going back to the morning exercise, then when I'm thinking about everything, I imagine myself in the best state of mind, and I picture myself with the goals that I want to achieve next. Sometimes they're the most immediate goals. I'm going to get certain things done. Sometimes they're longer term goals, really, really lofty goals. But whatever it is, I just put myself in that place. But the thing is, when I think about it in my mind, it's not the future. It's literally in my mind already happened. It's now. Nice. There's no time, because when it comes to our mind, there's no past, present, future. There's just whatever you're thinking. You know, and your body, your mind doesn't know the difference of whether it's actually physically right here, or if it's not, it will just react accordingly. And I know from my own experience that law of attraction really does work. And when we think about what we want and we put a lot of emotion behind it, it's really ours already. It's just on its way to us. But when we picture it so vividly, then later on, after I open my eyes, then I'm in a really good place. And throughout the day, whatever it is that has to be done, it's a literal manifestation of whatever I visualize, because I know that the rest of the day, there are a number of actions to be taken. And as the actions are taken, I remember what I visualized. And especially when it's an advancement of whatever I thought of for that day, then I feel really excited because I actually see it happen. And then right. At the end of the day, I don't know, I hope these answers aren't long, but since you wanted process to really get right down to the nitty gritty, I wanted to share this with everybody.
It's perfect, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I do a similar exercise, except I think back on my day, and if anything didn't go the way I had hoped, or if anything went wrong, or if there were, because some days aren't always perfect, right? So I go back and I reimagine the day as if it didn't happen with the negative things that happened. I imagine it completely differently, not to pretend that it didn't happen, but in a way to sort of eliminate and erase the residue of any bad stuff. So that way, in my mind, I actually retain the positive stuff of what did happen, and then I hold on to that for the next day. And so when I go to sleep that night, I go to sleep knowing that I've already let go anything for the day. And when I sleep, I try to sleep. Oh, the other thing, when I sleep, I also listen to subliminals. On my YouTube channel, I actually have put together a free list of a playlist of subliminal videos that I literally listen to every night. I play it all the way through. It's set to autoplay, and I listen to it every single day, or even night. Listen to it every single evening, and so then that's what I drift off to sleep. So process-wise, I guess to with this all this visualization stuff, I do stuff in the morning. I do stuff at night, but there are times also, even during the day, you can stop and briefly visualize. It can even just take a couple seconds, because when you're used to this, you can step right back into it, because this is just how you live. Right. But all this visualization, people would say, gosh, you're so busy, or doesn't this take up a lot of time? Well, to me, if we spend an hour to 2 hours a day just thinking, then it actually saves time, because we end up not wasting time by doing things unnecessarily, unproductively, but instead, whenever we do things, we do it with focus, and we do it in a way that we maximize our time. So it's basically an investment of time, but you actually get more done in a compressed period of time. And that's why, for people who get good at this, people would say, how possibly can you get all of this work done in such a short period of time? It's always a matter of focus. It's always a matter of staying organized and being thoughtful with how we utilize our time each day.
Beautiful. That sounds like an answer to a really common problem of scattered mind, where people suffer from that, especially with so many distractions around, and definitely a way to laser focus on what's important to you. I want to go back in time. I want to invite you to maybe share with us a little bit one of your early victories. I watched that on one of your videos where you shared your story about a guy called Dale.
Oh, yeah. You know that story.
Yes.
Well,
what did it mean for you? I mean, first of all, sorry to interrupt here, but like, if you give a bit of background to that, and something significant emotionally happened, and there was like a victory, if you don't mind sharing a little bit on that victory and what it meant for you and how it was a building stone for you?
Sure. By way of background to your viewers, I actually was a longtime victim of bullying as a kid. Being blind, kids would often put their hands in front of my face and say, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And they'd run away. Or they would plan a joke among their friends and they would trip me in the hallway, or they would do all manner of things that would just really just have anything to do with making fun of me, calling me Four Eyes, just saying all sorts of things. And so with that background in mind, there was this kid named Dale. I was in the 5th grade and he was in the 6th grade. And he was head and shoulders, way the heck ginormously bigger than me. He was just bigger. And with all of the years that I had of just being bullied and pushed around, at one moment early in the school year, I really felt like I had enough. And my dad said, "Look, Ollie, you need to learn how to stand up for yourself better. And, you need to battle back. You need to not feel like they can just walk all over you." So one day, this kid named Dale, I crossed his path. I didn't mean to, but I crossed his path and he said, "Get out of my way." And I don't know if I was in a bad mood or what. I just said, "No, I'm not going to get out of your way. You get out of my way." Those were the wrong things to say to somebody who was that much bigger than me. And so what he did was this was outside. So he picked me up and he started he started spinning me. And so imagine since he was so much bigger than me, he started turning around in a circle, having grabbed both my arms to the point where he had achieved so much momentum that I started flying parallel to the ground. My body literally was parallel to the ground at one point because of the circular motion that he was doing. And right when my body had hit that particular speed and he was spinning me, he let go.
Wow.
And so he didn't throw me far, but it was far enough that it hurt my pride. And I felt like, here I am trying to do the right thing. I stood up for myself and all I did was get hurt. And so I felt just defeated and devastated. And toward the end of the very same day, my 2 friends, Donna and Robert, who were around when all this happened, that one of them noticed that Dale was ahead of us where we were walking after school. And they said, "Well, there's Dale. Let's just go a different way." And I said, "No, I'm actually going to go and talk to him." And I remember my friends, they said, "Ollie, don't, you're going to die." I mean, and how kids are. When you're a kid, the playground is your universe and you think that all sorts of things can happen. So I was afraid. And I walked up to Dale and he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well," and I said in a shaky voice, because I was kind of scared, actually. I said, "Well, I don't want to be," and I stuttered. I said, "I don't want to be afraid of you for the rest of the year." And then I reached out my hand and I said, "Can I just be your friend?" Nice. And then I took a breath and I figured there's one or two things can happen. He's either going to deck me, I'm like going to lose consciousness or something, or he's going to shake my hand, one of the two. And so I almost closed my eyes. I don't remember if I did or not, but I waited. It felt like an eternity. But the next thing I felt was his hand in mine. It was a handshake. And he said, "Yeah, I'll be your friend." Nice. And then the next thing he said was, "Oh, yeah, by the way, I know that the other kids make fun of you too. If ever anybody makes fun of you ever again, you call me and I'll come running." And so for the first time in my life, I felt like, wow, I have power. And so I felt for the first time I had an ally. I had an ally in somebody, and somebody who could have been a real trouble for me for on an ongoing basis ended up being my best ally. And so the next day, people started hearing, "Oh yeah, Ollie is now friends with Dale." And they're like, "Yeah, right. How's Ollie going to be friends with Dale?" And so they did the usual making fun of me, and I literally called Dale's name. And he came and the kids scattered. They went in all directions. They couldn't believe it, And the best thing about that happened is that I was never made fun of the rest of the year again by anybody. I just wasn't. Everything changed. I mean, I felt like, wow. And then not to mention Dale it turned out to be a really good buddy. You know, I wish I could find him. So Dale, if you remember me still, if you see this, please find me. You know the elementary school we went to, so find me. I really, really want to find you again, buddy. But anyway, so that's the story. But that marked a turning point in my life where I felt like, you know, I'm just a kid, but I can really make a difference if I find a way to make the best of a situation. So then that's when all this other cool stuff happened that, you know, there's just all sorts of really wonderful things that happened with my growth in leadership and stuff. All sorts of things that I never, ever anticipated before that.
Nice. And all started with the act of courage, right? You had the courage to stand against him, first of all, to say no. And second thing, you had the courage to go against the will of your friends and go and kind of challenge him a little bit and say what you meant. That's amazing. I want to right now go to the second thing that like really inspired me when you shared that you had a dream, you had a very clear dream to become a lawyer. And there was a path, there was a huge path for you. Do you mind sharing and basically what it meant for you? Again, what steps you needed to take in order to achieve that?
Well, I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 10, believe it or not. And
why? Do you mind me asking?
Yeah, well, my family on my dad's side and mom's, they were both sides of the family were really active in politics in the Philippines. I'm originally from California, born and raised, but my parents are both from the Philippines. And so when I took a trip to the Philippines for the first time when I was 10 years old, I saw a lot of poverty. I also saw a lot of wealth. I saw a significant divide between those who are wealthy and those who weren't. And one thing that I felt from having been there and having seen that is that when people are to utilize the law as a way to enhance their rights, then that is a way for them to advance their own life and circumstances. And so having experienced that and seen that, I decided that I would someday be a lawyer. I didn't really know what being a lawyer meant. I just knew that that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a lawyer to make a big difference in the world. And so fast forward, I just thought that if I just worked at it, I'd get it. Along the way, though, I had a lot of obstacles. Because I have like 3% residual vision, I don't really have much, hardly. But I was not taught Braille as a kid. I learned Braille as an adult at the age of 22, so I was not a fast Braille reader. And on top of that, the materials in law school, every week we're expected to read hundreds of pages of material, and so I had to rely on readers, and I had to listen and take notes and then study the notes. It just was very arduous. And so I thought that I just wouldn't be able to make it. I honestly thought, with the various people who were telling me, who loved me, were telling me, hey, there are other things you can do because you're blind. There are other things you can do besides being a lawyer. You can still make a difference, but why law school? Why put yourself through all of that? We care about you. We don't want you to be hurt. And so my mom, who has been the architect of my life, she said to any of them, look, if you don't think he can do it, then stand aside, get out of the way and let me, guide and drive him. But I don't want to hear that from any of you telling him that. And she just demanded of everybody to lay off. And when I myself, to be honest, I cannot say that I always believed in myself and my abilities with this, because the stress was just so high. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just hit my limit here. I just can't do this. And my mom was my biggest drill sergeant, and she said, well, you need to finish what you started. You said that you wanted to be a lawyer. You're now in law school. You need to finish. And I'm like, well, Mom, don't you want me to be happy? I thought that you'd be supportive of my happiness. And she said, well, in the short run, it might feel like it would be happier for you if you just quit. But in the long run, you're teaching yourself that it's okay to quit. And I never raised a quitter.
Amazing.
So finish. You need to finish, and I'm not asking. So in other words, she required me to finish. So
she's like a military.
Oh, she's amazing. My mom is amazing. And see, the thing is, I could sit here and say, well, in spite of the odds, I stuck with it, I persisted, and I made it through. If I were to tell you that, it's a lie. It's a lie. The reason why I finished law school, and I've talked about this in my speeches, is I was afraid of my mom.
But that's the power of mentors, right?
Oh my gosh. She's amazing. Yeah. She said I thanked her later, and I have thanked her a trillion times since, you know.
Beautiful. I hope she watches that.
I love my mom and my dad and my sister, and you know, I have an amazing, just wonderful family, and I'm just so grateful. Again, they are just, the family is just so important, and I'm just so grateful that I have the family that I do.
What I see, I mean, it's so common with people who are going through obstacles and people who are able to go against so many odds that, like, lots of people just basically say, well, stop trying. But what I see, that there's this amazing amount of love being poured from people around that gives them hope, that gives them faith, that gives them positive expectation, and often gives more belief in themselves than they believe themselves. I have experienced that myself growing up as well, and I want to also ask you about that, because often you refer to your sister as well as a second pillar in your life. Do you mind sharing, like, how much that relationship means to you?
Oh my gosh. Well, my sister, she's the best sister I could ever imagine. Sorry, I get a little emotional because I'm just so grateful for her. In times in my life when I didn't know what would happen, and when I had just times of doubt myself, my sister never doubted me. And we're extremely close. As kids, we fought like cats and dogs, and as adults, we're extremely close. We were close to even back then, even though we fought. You know, heaven help anybody who went against either of us, because we would rush to protect the other. I mean, I just love my sister. I love my mom and dad, and my sister. She's just so wonderful because. She's been my, you know, as a sibling, she's been my biggest champion. She's always believed in me. She's always been so supportive, and I'm just really, really, truly just feel so blessed to have her.
Nice. Beautiful. I want to also touch on next thing that lots of people definitely ask you about. You work for US president. Which one, and what did you learn from him?
Well, I actually work in different capacities. The first president I worked for is President George W. Bush, and that actually, regardless of whether people like or don't like President Bush, the thing that can be learned from there is that there's real power in visualization, because I made the decision. I still remember on January the 5th of 2004, I made the decision that I would meet President Bush. Nice. I just decided, and by the way, I had no political connections. Our family is not tied to anybody who knew them. They didn't know I existed. You know, there's nothing, no contact, just some guy. You know, who, I mean, I worked here, but I didn't know anybody close to them or anything. So, but I still decided on February 5th I would meet the president. Long story short, I met the president on May the 5th of that same year. And people literally teamed up to have me meet him. That's, and it's in and of itself is a long story, but it really was just great, because I put it out there. I put it out into the universe, and I just was so focused on meeting him. And then when I met him, I told him that I'm grateful that I'll be working for him someday. I literally told the President of the United States, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. President. Someday I am going to work for you, sir. I don't know how, but someday I'm going to work for you."
What did he say?
He said, "I have the feeling you will." Longer story short, I became a government official that year on August the 10th, 2004.
Wow. Since February till August, the dream came true. Actually,
that's right.
One of them is seeing him, second thing, working for him.
Right. And that's the year that I went from a 5 to 6 figure income.
Amazing.
So, and then after that, then when I joined the Justice Department as a high level official in the Office of the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, within 2 years, I ended up going to the White House and working to lead the president's disability agenda for the nation. Wow, I was associate director for domestic policy, and it was really, really an amazing, just fulfilling experience. And then I got another presidential appointment after that, or I should just say I got a presidential appointment after that, where I was a commissioned appointee. I was chairman of the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities. And then that carried over into the administration of President Obama. And I continued at the Justice Department. And now I'm grateful to work within the Obama administration, continuing doing my efforts to do civil rights work at the U.S. Department of Education. And I work in the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights. So this is all by way of biography. Just to say here, I am not representing the government through this interview today. This is just biographical information. I just needed to say that for the record. But
the disclaimer.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That's amazing. That's another beautiful demonstration of what you've done. I see so much clarity in you. Like whenever I speak to somebody and I see clarity, there is something magnetic. There is this ability of imagine things, go after them, and put all your energy and basically expect the best things to happen. And I want to touch on that as well, because I know you are a man of faith. And what has faith done for you? What does it mean to have faith?
Well, my faith is central to my life. It's not just going to church on Sundays. It's living my faith each day. The God who I believe in is a God of love, a God of caring, and a God of support. And I also believe that we are destined to reach our greatest, to strive for, and to reach our greatest potential, and to do so without apology. And I'm also a big believer through my faith, I'm also a big believer in that whenever we prosper, we need to also be giving to the world. So many people, I realize this isn't a direct answer to what you're saying, asking, but so many people think, oh, well, if you strive to make more money, then you must be greedy, or maybe you're too materialistic or whatever. And they say, money doesn't buy happiness. And my answer, neither does poverty. So when any of us strives for greater material wealth, and we're giving as individuals, that just means we have more to give away. If we're greedy by nature and we acquire more money, it just means that we have more to hoard. But it's not the money. It's not the money itself that determines whether we're greedy or we're giving. It's who we are inside. And so, with that said, as a part of my faith, and I'm, if anybody wonders, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and as part of my faith, I'm just so grateful for the fact that we each have a mission on this earth to fulfill, and the mission is to build up the world, and to add value to it, so that by the time our earthly probation is done, that somehow the world is better because we lived in it.
Beautiful.
Anytime that we don't do all that we can, we're squandering the opportunity that we've been given to make that kind of difference. And the fact is, Marcin, that you have made a difference through these broadcasts, through giving people belief and enabling them to reach within themselves. And all of us need to do the same. We all have a responsibility, a moral responsibility to give of ourselves to the people right around us, because it causes an amazing ripple effect throughout the world. So whether or not a person is an individual of faith, or they're agnostic, or they whatever, the fact is that nobody can deny that our actions have a ripple effect. So with that in mind, we may be driven by our spiritual commitment to being at our very best, whatever that is for you. And I'm a big respecter of people practicing whatever faith they have. And at the same time, I'm also a proud believer in the faith that I have. So I feel like for all of us, we should be proud of whoever we are, of whatever faith we are, or have, or do not have. But as long as we are true to ourselves, and as long as what we do entails building up the world as opposed to tearing it down, that's a way for us to stay on track in helping us collectively to build the kind of legacy that we can all be proud of.
Beautiful. I have to say this is something that touches me a lot, and seeing how you are a living testimony to bettering yourself and contributing and using your life to leave an impact and to make other people's lives easier and better. That's really, really amazing. And I want to ask you also here, like finishing off, you have 3 sons. What's your vision for your sons? What would you like your sons to be like? What are some of the greatest lessons that you have learned yourself that you would like to pass on?
Well, for each of my sons, Leo, Nick, and Steven, I guess the best way to summarize it is that everything I end up doing in my life in totality, I want that to pale in comparison to all of the good that they are to do, whatever that means for them. 2 of them want to be lawyers, so I'm really proud of them for that. I didn't pressure them, but they want to be lawyers. So good for them. And 1 wants to be a computer programmer. All 3 of them are on track to becoming Eagle Scouts. They're part of Boy Scouts here. Boy Scouts of America is a big organization that promotes leadership development among boys to really teach them how to be future leaders in the bigger world. They all do well in school, etc. They all are committed to community service. And so my big dream for them is that they realize their fullest potential by taking an inventory of what they love to do, finding a way to monetize what they love to do so they can actually make money at what they do, so that way provides a good living for them and their future wives and children, and that they can also continue to have a spirit of community service and build that legacy that I'm leaving for them, where I mean it's just fact of life that it's a whole circle of life thing. They're right now, I mean, I'm around for them, and there will be a point where hopefully a long time in the future, well, there will be a time when I won't be, because of my earthly time being done, whatever that is, 99 years from now. But the whole thing that I'm thinking about in the long run is that by the time my time on earth is done, that I will be able to look back on my life, and people will be able to look back on my life and say that I actually did something that mattered, that I built the kind of legacy that lasts in people's lives in the millions, and that my sons can carry the torch forward, building upon what I built, in the same way that the reason why I am where I am is because of my own parents, and the reason why they are where they are is because of their parents, etc. It's just a part of the life cycle where things get passed on and wisdom gets passed on from one generation to the next. And to make sure that wisdom is not lost, we have to take an active role in teaching our children and grandchildren, etc., rights as well as responsibilities. We need to have a compassion and a genuine love for the common person. And at the same time, we need to understand that when people make money, that they're not necessarily greedy, et cetera, et cetera. So it needs to be both. And the way that this is done is the rising tide lifts all boats. So we need to provide ways for anyone to be able to make money for themselves, so that way they can build their legacy. Because there's a lot of wealth in the world. It's just a matter of each of us being able to do our part to have a piece of that, because there's so much abundance in anything. I'm not just talking about financial wealth, but in anything, there's so much abundance. And so our legacy collectively, my children and me, as well as my family and everyone we know, our collective legacy has to be the commitment to make the world better. And I don't mean just flowery, oh, rainbows, butterflies, but I mean really at a practical level, is the world really actually better by the lives that we touched each day, by the people we serve quietly that nobody ever hears about, by the ways that we promote an example of being kind to others and rendering acts of service and just doing things for their own sake without necessarily getting any recognition for it, but just doing it just because it's a good thing to do.
Beautiful. I just want to also touch on the story, like when I spoke to you last time, you were walking through the streets of Washington with your sons, and you shared proudly also how one of them, for the first time, was leading you guys through a very busy street for the first time, right? And that was amazing. I just shared that story with my wife and also a couple of other people, like how you lead by examples and how you set challenges for your children as well to be able to grow, right? Because we do need those challenges to grow.
Oh yeah,
any party,
exactly.
Go on. Yeah.
And my children are blind also. Just to point out for viewers too, and it's easy at first to give into the temptation to say, well, just hold them close, keep them safe, make sure they never get hurt. I mean, that's our children's safety for all of us, of course, as parents. We want nothing more than for our children always to be safe. But the thing that is equally important is for our children to learn how to be brave and strong and to learn how to bounce back. And it also entails our children taking risks. And I don't mean unreasonable risks like going across the street without knowing how to cross, but I mean more like just learning how to make their way in the world. And gaining the confidence and learning how to take initiative and literally living with whatever the consequences are of their good decisions and learning lessons from the decisions that weren't good. But the only way for children to grow is for them to be given different experiences and different opportunities where sometimes they have to learn how not only to succeed, but they need to learn how to handle failure. So frequently people are focused just on success, but the other thing that's also important is we have to show our children to learn how to address failure. So in other words, we can fail our way to success. So many people are afraid to fail. Like the problem with being afraid to fail is that means then that they don't even try, and that's worse. So, I mean, we've always heard the saying, well, it's better at least that you try than not try at all. But if there's really a deep truth to that, where we can fail our way to the top. We know about Thomas Edison and the light bulb and his attempt of roughly about 10,000 times before he got it right. We know about our sports heroes, none of whom have a perfect record with scoring or shooting the basket or hitting the baseball or whatever. But it's the fact that even if they don't make it in a specific instance, they still continue and do better overall because they just keep at it. So I guess where I was going with all of that is that we just each just have to remember that no matter who we are, Marcin, no matter who we are, we have a lot to contribute, and it starts right now. It starts today. Imagine there may be somebody watching your interview, I mean this broadcast, or they might see it on YouTube or wherever this ends up going, and they might make the decision right now that they're going to change their lives, whatever that means for them.
Absolutely.
to you who and you know who you are, whoever's watching this, you know who you are. If you want to make changes in your lives, just remember that the past does not equal the future. Any failures that you've had in the past doesn't mean you're going to fail the next time. And you just have to, we all of us have got to remember that every day represents a brand new start. And whatever that means for you, no matter how many times it takes, we must each be committed to our own success, because what's the alternative? If we decide to give up and fail and just settle for less, then we're squandering our potential, and there's no fun in that. But if we keep at it and we find mentors to guide us, you have mentors. I know we talked about that earlier offline, Marcin.
Yeah.
I have mentors. We need to each find our own mentors. And some people might say, well, Ollie, you might have been successful because you talked about your wonderful family. Well, I don't have a great family at all. I hate my family. You know, they might say stuff. So my answer to them, and people have asked me that, my answer to them is, well, then create your own family. Create your own family of support. Find people who love and care about you, and look to them to be your family. Ultimately, whatever we all have, we each have challenges too. And when we make sure to have the right mindset to tackle those challenges, and we do it in a deliberate way, then no challenge is too great for us to overcome, especially when we're going to be persistent enough until the challenges are met. And then once we meet those challenges, we go on to the next thing.
Amazing. Ollie, it was really generous, and I'm sure we're going to come back, and I'm looking forward to more of our chats. But I just want to also ask you if you can point people who would love to connect with you. How can they find you?
They can go to www.olliecantos, OLLIECAN like Nancy, T like Tom, OS like Sam.com, olliecantos.com. And there you'll be able to find the Ollie Cantos Visionary Series. You'll also be able to look me up on YouTube under Ollie Cantos. Please subscribe to my channel, and you'll see the Ollie Cantos Visionary Series on my website, where I talk about a lot of these principles. There are also other ways that I've added value through my YouTube channel. Plus, with the website, there's information there about if you'd like for me or my children or all of us to come and speak wherever you are. And we would love to meet you in person anywhere around the world, and to share with you our just time together in a large group setting, wherever. We're open to speaking wherever, and also to being of support to others who we might be able to help.
Thank you very much, Ollie, and thank you very much for tuning in and watching us. And please subscribe and watch. There will be more exciting episodes coming up. And Ollie, big thanks again, and God bless. Speak soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.